All right, welcome friends to our Sunday evening live. I hope you are Sunday afternoon. I always forget that it's afternoon for you guys and evening for me. But I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys had a great trading week. I hope you guys attended our live last week because all I can say is we were exactly right about what happened with the FOMC. And if you took any of the trades we suggested, if you listened to any of the feedback we had on the FOMC, you were ready to make money in the markets. And I have to say, for us, this was a stellar week. We just had massive returns. The fact that we had volatility back in the market meant that the trades that we normally take that often give us, $1,000 or $2,000 were giving us easily $3,000, $4,000 for the same exact trade, just because there was so much more volatility on the Tuesday, Wednesday, and even going into the Thursday, because people were not ready with what was going to happen in the markets. All right, I am not sure what is happening with with Instagram. They always like to take a little pause before we actually get the signal out. I am super excited to have my co-host on today because for those who have been trading, this has just been a crazy market, right? Like everything is just racing to all-time highs. A lot of our end of year targets have been hit the last 2 weeks. So we are having to either decide if we're going to stay in longer, if we think that our end of year targets were insufficient, or if we need to start looking for other trades. So I'm actually really excited to see what Zay has to say, but it is not actually letting me see. Invitation, because it's like it's not showing me anybody when I come in. So hopefully you guys can hear me, see me, because Instagram isn't giving me a clean signal. I might have to go off and come back in. All right. Oh, I see my co-host here. Hello, sir.
Hello, hello,
How are you?
hello. Pretty good, pretty good. Just got
Should I
back
say
off.
welcome back from part of whatever your world travels are? Seems like you're constantly road tripping and
Yeah, September has been pretty busy. Last week we were in Ohio because my wife's alumni played Ohio State, so we went to that game. And then this weekend it was my niece's first birthday, and so we went up to New Jersey with family, and
oh,
we had basically celebrated that.
I, I have to say, your niece and your daughters are just so cute. Oh my
Thank you so
goodness.
much.
So they're so adorable. And I have to say, your eldest with the blonde curly hair is just too much. It's so cute. It's so rare to see natural afro blonde hair. I love it.
Yeah,
It's
so it's so
unique.
funny you say
So,
that because, like this
but you
past
have
weekend, like
red hair.
so she definitely has multiple colors, right? Like it
Hmm.
changes colors, um, and yeah, we had a few family members like, did y'all get that done? We're like, nah, that's natural. You know what I mean? Like, she just had blonde tips, and sometimes during the winter, or not winter, during the summer, it get really blonde when the sun really hit it.
Hmm.
And then during the wintertime when it's not as sunny, it gets back to her like brown color and just to go to her little blonde tips. But yeah, wherever we go, people always compliment my oldest on her hair. They fall in love with her hair, that curly
It's
stuff.
so
So
unique.
it is, yeah. They love it. They're like, oh my God. So yeah, I
It's really
appreciate it.
beautiful. Yeah. And,
Thank you,
um,
thank you, thank you.
so Sasha, you're always welcome to head down to come down and visit me in Montenegro. She's saying a beautiful background. Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
you do? Like,
spoiled.
what is that your pool?
So this one is actually my neighbor's pool, and ours is this one. the
Yeah.
one that's
Okay.
doing disco lights.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
know how to turn off those disco lights. I always feel like, is there somebody like filming something in my swimming pool, but they didn't ask me for permission?
Yeah.
Because sometimes in the middle of the night, I'll hear the jacuzzi come on, and I'm like, is there a stranger in my
Right. I was
swimming
gonna say,
pool?
is that that's
But
crazy.
it's never a stranger in my swimming pool because not many people actually live around us because we live in a no building area. So, like, if you look down this way, there's almost like nothing down towards us. And then above us, there's some like historical homes that have been there forever. But like, even this house here is, I think it's like over, it's like 100 years old. And now the family, like, they passed it down. Now they were like renovating the entire thing.
Oh
But
wow.
yeah, all the homes here are historical homes. So you have to either buy something that's already been built, but it's very difficult to get building permission because they don't want people to go up the mountain. They don't want to build new roads up, but they also don't want to create congestion because our roads are really narrow. So
Mm.
like if you start having people with like massive SUVs trying to go up and down, it's going to be
Problem.
catastrophe for
Do they
people
renovate?
going. Yeah, yeah. So
Like,
this house is actually, so this pool, they built it, I think, in the like last summer. So this summer is the
oh,
first summer that it's been done. So it's actually a Norwegian family. They spend the summers, no, they spend the summer, the winters, no, the summers in Norway and the winters here. They want it's that
they want
winter
that.
vitamin D.
Yes.
So they're like those people that like are from Minnesota but then like live in Texas or live in Arizona during the
Yep.
winter so that they
Yep.
can survive the freeze. Yes, we have a lot
Yep.
of those northern Europeans who come here to get their,
Get
their
that? Yeah.
glow
They basically
back.
are. I guess they like they. We call them here the snowbirds. They go. They leave the north and they go to the south. So yeah.
Yep, that's exactly it. So, okay, so I am super excited to just hear everything from you today because I'll be honest, this week was like, I think that this week we probably had the performance of an entire month's worth of returns in one week. We just, I mean, like I was going through we closed all of our trades. So I've
Okay.
started doing this like weekly roundup thing in order to like actually go through and look at everything that we opened and closed in the week and then like swing trades that we closed. And I was like, my goodness, we have like 52 trades open and they're all at like 600%. And now I don't know what to do. I'm like, we've hit all of our end of year targets on almost everything. I'm
Hmm.
like, CrowdStrike 500,
Hmm.
Oracle massive move, Snow massive move. I'm just like, goodness gracious, these things are running so fast. QBST, I mean, I can't even think, I mean, I can't even list them. There are so many. But so now the question is, you know, is is this signaling to us because, the Fed is now on a new rate cut path, though a modest rate cut path? Do we like lean in because this is just going to be an exponential move? Or do we need to really just look for a sector rotation? We have to move into close up areas that have been performing well and move into areas that have maybe been underperforming. What are you advising people? Or I shouldn't say, none of this is financial advice. It's entertainment purposes only. We have the disco lights to prove it. But
Yeah.
what are you doing for yourself? Maybe that's
That's what
the
I was gonna
right
say.
way to.
Usually, right. So what I do, right. So great. That's a perfect pivot, right? I don't give people advice. I just say this is what I'm doing, right?
Hmm.
Like this is my perspective. Um. So yes, right. Backtrack a second. Yeah. What an incredible run, right? I was looking forward to getting on with you today because I remember towards the end of last year we had some pretty lofty targets. And then we had that early correction, and we were like, we might have to adjust those a little bit because things looked a little shaky. We recovered. We kind of were like, okay, well, maybe we can revert back to those same end of the year targets we had, right? And now it's like, well, we hit it. So what do you do, right? Where do you go from here? Um, And yeah, I think that like so right before we got on, I was doing my usual weekend research, on YouTube World, watching different videos and stuff like that. And what I come up with is, I would just say, the consensus, or what I from what I saw, is everybody's asking the same question, which is when is the pullback,
Hmm.
right? Everybody's like, when's the pullback? When are we going to pull back? Or the pullback is about to happen, right? And one of my natural tendencies is to be a bit of a contrarian. And
Hmm.
so I asked, I started thinking to myself, what if the
Just
question
one
being
second,
asked?
Zay. I think that my internet somehow has connected to a different connection and it's like it's going slow. So it may be slow for other people. And I think the fault is on my end. I'm going to change the internet thing. If it drops, we just start
Get
back
back in.
on. Okay.
Yep. All right. So let's pause there before I go in.
All right. Problem. Okay.
Okay, we still there?
Yep. And I can still hear you if you can still hear me.
Yep, I can still hear you. Yep. I think we still got everybody
Perfect.
on. Okay. So what I was saying is, or what I was about to say was, I asked myself, what if we're asking the wrong question? Right?
Hmm.
What if the whole when is a pullback coming? What if that's the wrong question? So the question
Hmm.
I'm asking myself now is, how high can this market go without a pullback?
Hmm.
Right? Because the consensus, everybody's like, okay, well, we've hit this target and we're here, we're there. And so, okay, now we have to pull back, right?
Hmm.
But I'm looking at the signals I use, and it's not giving me pullback vibes.
Yeah.
Like like the American Association of Individual Investors, that's the sentiment survey I look at.
Hmm.
Last week that came out, and let me just make sure I give you the right numbers real quick. I want to say, I know it was like a 40, it was basically like a 40-40 split, but
Hmm.
bearishness was still higher.
Wow.
Right. I'm about getting it right now. Okay, yeah. So last week it was
Hmm.
42% of the survey for the people who were surveyed were bearish, 41% was bullish, 16% were neutral. The week before that, 28% were bullish, 22 were neutral, and 49 was bearish. So like this is the first 40% plus bullish reading we've gotten since July 30th. Other than that, it's been like bear, 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 bear. Fear and greed. I think we're in greed now, but it
Hmm.
was floating around neutral. Like we're not even
Hmm.
at extreme greed.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm looking at the sentiment, I'm looking at the breadth indicators, and it's mind-boggling to me that you have in the Nasdaq only 54% of stocks are above their 20-day moving average. 51% of stocks are above their 50-day. You look at the total market, only 53% of stocks are above their 20-day. You got
Hmm.
62 above their 50-day. So there's like a lot more upside uh, that could actually be had, right?
Yeah, because I mean, you've had
What's up, Ty?
a lot of sectors have, where you look into the sector and the subsectors, you've only actually had like one piece performing. Like, for example, in healthcare stocks, it's really only medical devices that has consistently been performing. All the other parts of healthcare have just been doing nothing or even going down. I mean, you still have a lot of stocks that are just
I
maintaining
think
their
healthcare is by
downtrend.
far the worst performing sector year to date.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm not actually surprised.
Yeah,
And I mean, not surprised now, but definitely at the beginning of the year, that was a sector that everybody thought would do really well just because, people thought, well, with rate cuts coming, and it's a sector that always has, funds coming in. But
right.
one of the things that I had, like the fears I had, I would say, is that I don't know if fear is the right word, but like
Risk.
hesitancy is that we didn't know what RFK was going to do. Well, first of all, we didn't know if he was going to be um, head of whatever the title is,
I think it's
and
Department of Health.
That's it. And we didn't know what his policies would look like. And we knew that he had a lot of like anti-vaccination rhetoric, a lot of, anti-dyes and anti-sugars, which, I would argue that, those are actually
That's actually
really
pretty
good.
good, right?
But that's really hard on like chemical companies and factories and manufacturing and production, because that means that, companies that produce a lot of that stuff are going to have to change a lot of their formulas, and
Yeah.
it changes the taste, it changes what people like and don't like, so on and so forth, and every state has a slightly different regulation. So people just don't, investors don't like to be involved in the like guessing ceremonies. They like to wait till things kind of get their pullback, and then they feel like, okay, even if it's still a hike from here to getting back to natural upward trajectory, but at least I'm getting in at a much better price.
Mhm.
So for me, I thought, okay, I don't want to guess with healthcare, but with medical devices, that doesn't have anything to do with policy. Like a lot of the robotics and, real estate relating to hospitals or like services. I mean, those things were going to stay the same, but the types of prescriptions, if they're going to get, funding, what's going to happen with Medicare, Medicaid, veterans
Mhm.
benefits, veteran services, those kinds of things. You're like, I'm not sure that I want that to be involved in that sector. But saying that, like healthcare, even aspects of like defenses, I mean, utilities, even oddly, if you look in the subsectors, even though energy has become such a huge component of everything, things like water, I'm really surprised that like water stocks have just been chopping sideways for the last, 10 months, 12 months. And I really thought those could potentially outperform. So I agree with you that, there's some sectors that have just done really well, like technology. But even then, when you look down into the breakdown, there's still only like two or three subsectors that are like running ahead, and then these other subsectors that haven't even had a chance to breathe yet. So
Right.
like, yeah, could there be more upside, but from those stocks, if they start to participate, especially now that rates are coming down, does that give us that next leg up? Oh, so I'm with you. I can
Yeah.
see that.
So yeah. So it's really, I won't say it's tough. It's just I'm where I'm at with it is the trend is your friend till it ends.
Hmm.
Right. And you know, price is so it's in such a strong uptrend. I'm gonna be very
Hmm.
careful with my words today because I want to stay away from the whole bullish bearish. At the end of the day, I think emotions and how people see things is what clouds their judgment. So at the end of the day, when you have a non-bias and just look at price, it's in a very strong uptrend,
Hmm.
and I'm not gonna fight that. So I will say I'm selective, right? Like we just were saying, it's very much a stock picker's market, so I'm being very selective. Uh, I'd say from an index perspective, be careful because you just don't want to buy the top. But in an individual name, like we were just saying, if you dig down and go beneath the surface, there are a lot of bullish setups. There are a
Hmm.
lot of names that can still have upside. And even if the market pulls back or just consolidates, that doesn't mean some of those other names can't play catch up, right?
Hmm.
And so, therefore, it still could be money to be made. So, I mean, where I'm at with it and kind of what I'm telling people I'm doing is I'm just I'm being selective about where I put new money. I'm being hyper concentrated, meaning I'm just focusing on specific names that I feel like, okay, if this market whether this market keeps going, consolidates, I like these names regardless, right?
Hmm.
And outside of that, I'm saying, listen, stop trying to call the top. God damn it,
Yep.
because the
One.
more people keep doing it, I just be like, yo, we gonna keep going higher.
Yep.
So
I definitely think there's so first of all, I think the fact that like people have been calling the top for months now means that there are a lot of hedge funds and fund managers and money markets that that just haven't been participating in this next leg of the rally. So
Oh,
now
they
they
a lot.
have hard decisions to make. Like,
Yep.
okay, we've missed out on this. Do we now start getting involved again, even though
Yeah.
we like, pulled out of stuff? I was listening to a good friend of mine that has his own kind of family office, and he let me in on their like the kind of their presentation of the month on their macro expectations, but then also their performance. And it was hilarious. He was like, actually, the thing that has bled us the most money. So overall, year to date, they're doing great. They're for a family office, they're up 40%, which is like, which is brilliant
That's pretty
considering,
good. Yeah.
what happened in April,
That's really good.
and that they're a little bit conservative.
Yeah.
It's a family office. They already made their many, many millions. So they're not trying
Mhm.
to like, they're not trading for their lives. But
Right.
he said like our returns for the year might have already been well over 50%, but actually all of our losses are in our hedges. That's like where they've consistently taken the the most consistent losses. But they said, you know what, we're going to continue to execute on that format,
Yeah.
because you can't short at the highs, because you don't know when things are actually going to start rolling over,
Right.
and then you're just not participating. They said all of
Right.
our massive returns has been because we've stayed in all of our long positions, and we've just been willing to risk some of the profits that we made by putting on slightly more significant hedges. And
Hmm.
they're like, and in the event that we have that tail risk and we get blown out, our hedges will
Are there?
significantly
Yep.
perform, and
Hmm.
we'll be fine with that because our returns year over year will continue to be green. Um, but then so it echoes the fact that, like, when people are bearish, you have to be just cautious, not to get, because the thing that I hate the most is that people will get on YouTube or on the news or whatever and be ultra bearish for months and months and months, and then when the bearish event happens, they'll be like, see, I told you. Yeah, you told me like 6 months ago, and I haven't been, like, I've been doing nothing,
Yeah.
waiting for this negative news. But something I thought was really interesting. So I was listening to someone and they said Americans often make the mistake of comparing performance inside their own market. And so they're looking at like how is the S&P performing against like previous years of the S&P or the Nasdaq or the Russell or A, B, C, and D, but everything is kind of housed inside an echo chamber of performance. And they said, but if you compare the performance of the US stock market to any emerging market, even the European markets, actually the US markets are trailing significantly. So, yes, their returns are positive, but their returns are barely positive when you compare it to the outperformance globally. And considering that the US dollar is at like not all-time lows, but in recent years we're at very significant lows. And international, like global investors are making a lot of money investing in their own markets. But because the dollar is so cheap, it continues to allow them to hop back in to our growth sectors. So there's
Hmm.
kind of this like strange little like funnel of funding from like global investors that keeps coming back to the US because the
Hmm.
dollar is just so cheap, and their
Hmm.
currencies being so strong and the
Hmm.
outperformance of their local markets. They can just trim 5% off the top of their gains and put it back into the US market, knowing 5-10 years from now Nvidia and AVGO and Meta and Google and all those companies are going to be trading at like 10 times what they're trading now, if you can, buy and hold that far out to the future. So I don't know what you think about that, because I found that a really
Uh,
interesting argument.
I think that was one of Trump's plans. Like
Hmm.
when, we don't know for sure, but I do, I've heard the rumblings that one of the Trump's administration's plans was to not, yeah, to like weaken the dollar, right?
Hmm.
By weakening the dollar, that would make, like you said, the outside, the global markets do better. And in turn, in those global markets doing better, they now have more money to invest in the US. So kind of just creating a cycle.
Hmm.
So I think that personally, that was part of Trump's plan to kind of weaken the US dollar, have international markets perform better, the tariff stuff, right? Use that as a form of leverage to then get them to, in turn, reinvest into the United
Hmm.
States. And so I think it's just a big, like you said, it's a big funnel.
Hmm.
To your point, as far as international markets outperforming, yeah, I mean, you look at it, we got the China HSI or the Hang Seng Index is up 32% this year.
It's
That's more
crazy.
than the Nasdaq right now, right?
Hmm.
And you can go through a ton of other markets, the India market, all those other markets. They all at all time highs, and they're performing exceptionally well. And I mean, listen, if the rest of the world is doing well, you cannot think that the as of now the world superpower ain't gonna follow up. Meaning the
Hmm.
U.S. is gonna just be doing bad.
Hmm.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I think that was a part of Trump's plan. I think that's what he wanted. I think that's why the dollar is at the levels it's at. That's why they are doing the policies they're doing, and it's all a part of his plan.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I mean, in his first presidency, he also weakened the US dollar. That was also a big part of his action. And I think now the US dollar is now finally weaker than it was in his first presidency. Like he's finally
Hmm.
achieved breaking those lows, if I can remember correctly, where we're at and where we were at under his previous policy. So I agree with you that I think that a lot of it has been has been a big part of like his kind of the legacy that he wanted to leave, just because it would be the easiest way to encourage reshoring, because
Yeah.
you can't do any manufacturing reshoring when the US dollar is just too strong. But I was surprised about how much of this other aspect of like international markets,
Hmm.
just that strength was continuing to kind of move forward. So I just thought that was quite interesting. So a lot of people are like, give us specific names, give us specific names. So what do we think about the Chinese stocks, BABA, JD, KWeb? Do you have any? Um,
As far as like the China market goes, like I just mentioned, the Hang Seng
mhm,
is up 32%. Technically, it hit a big bullish shift. What I mean by that is it took out, let me go over here and pull it back up. Um, so first of all, like the China market was in a prolonged bear market for a very long time.
mhm,
And it didn't, I would, I'd argue to say it just is now coming out of it this year.
yep, mhm,
Like last year, while it was like the Hang Seng was positive 17% last year, but that was really like the bottom.
yep,
And now this is the start of, okay, it's coming out of that bear market. So it has a bullish shift because it's just now took out 2022 high. Like
mhm,
we're not even back to 2021 highs, and we're nowhere near uh the all-time highs of the Hang Seng market,
mhm,
right? So um when it comes to the China names, they too are breaking out. Shout out to Baba, Baidu. You got Baba up 92% on the year.
mhm,
But it's still well below its 2019 closing level. Like
yep,
Baba doesn't get back above its 2019 closing level until it gets to 212. So like Baba could easily get up to 212 and it's still only back at its 2019 levels,
mhm,
right? So they have significant upside. Talking about Baidu, Baidu just got above its 2019 closing level, which was 126, but it's up 60% year to date.
mhm,
I think when it comes to the China market, I was just reading an article today that, China this was the wording. They're not begging Nvidia anymore. They're really trying to do their own onshoring things. So names
Hmm.
like Huawei, Baidu, Baba will continue to do well, especially if we do see China's government push more homegrown tech versus, yeah, Nvidia's, your AMD.
Hmm.
So, I mean, with that being said, I think um, it's simple. Yeah, China. I mean, China's breaking out of the bear market. It probably has significant more upside. I think when if relations can continue to do better and we really get a trade deal done, then I think it's a win-win, and you can probably continue to invest in the China names.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think that we
Yeah.
have some really long-term bases on some of these stocks. And the thing
Yes,
is
you
that
do.
these companies are good companies. They're not zombie companies. They're not doing like fake stuff. It's not, they're not like they are viable companies. They're in a country that is interested in their success. And I think that
Yep.
that's, a lot of times, people look at, oh, it's a communist country, so A, B, C, D. That's fine. But remember, it is a country of a billion people, and they can host an entire economy by themselves. There are a few things that China does not have. And agriculture is probably the greatest like weakness in their economy, but
Mhm.
they don't need America to satisfy any of that. So they know that, they have, if they invest in their like in the local kind of tech development, that
Mhm.
they'll get what they want. And it's funny because
Mhm.
here, I was listening to a couple of Montenegrins. They were talking about this situation, and they said that China almost has its own Israel. And I was like, what does that mean? And they said, the United States spends so much money developing Israel, but Israel owns all of its own IP. But China's not interested in investing all of its money to develop IP in a third country
Mhm.
that they act like this is our like second home. But actually
Mhm.
none of that IP belongs to you. All
Mhm.
of the IP that China is interested in developing is inside its own country.
Mhm.
And so they were like, imagine if all of the technology that we've helped support develop in Israel had actually been developed inside the United States,
Mhm.
then there would be a true like it would be a true like head-to-head competition. But America has allowed too much to kind of go into this like third country that we're like funding all of its education and funding all of its healthcare and funding all, like it's basically our socialism is in
Yeah.
a third country of which most of its citizens aren't even American. But
Right.
we're busy funding that instead of putting the money back into our own country. But China, because of their communist ideals, they would never do that. That
Mm.
just doesn't make any good sense to them. They're not interested in building bases all over the world. They're not in, any technology they develop, even if it's military technology, it is, it's all somehow like 90% of this is to the benefit of like the communist society and then maybe somebody else. And
Yep.
sadly, that's not how capitalism works, because you are
Mm.
looking to squeeze the most amount of money out of every activity, which means because the only people you're interested in is the final investor. You're not
Mhm.
actually, it's not even about your customers half the time, or otherwise you wouldn't be selling products with dyes and all this other nonsense. You would,
Yeah.
if your customer was the most important person in
Right.
your equation. So I was like, that's really interesting. And I would never have like thought, I never would have really thought about it, but I was actually very interested because Montenegro is an independent country and it's super tiny, right? Like, so it's a country that's constantly having to be strategic because everybody that surrounds them wants to absorb them, right? Croatia wants them, Serbia wants them, Bosnia wants them, Albania wants them, and they
Mm.
share a common language. So, except for Albania. So they all share a common language, and and it has the water. access. So, and
Hmm.
Serbia and Bosnia don't. So,
Right.
Montenegro is a country that they would like to absorb. So, Montenegro's always having to like vie for positioning to make sure that they don't put themselves in a weak part. So, sometimes when you're listening to their politics, their point of view about these things is really unique. And I'm like, that's a good point. But they see it
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
they are like the smallest um they're like, the smallest person, but with like the most most valuable real estate, so to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that before I came here, but they're teaching me a lot.
But you learned it now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's yeah. I mean, it's always good to get different perspectives because I mean, it helps you avoid bias, right?
Hmm.
Being in America, I'm only subject to America's uh, media, right? And
Hmm.
so America's media is going to always spin things in a light that makes America look good. But when you do go to overseas and other countries and you hear the different perspectives, you're like, oh, okay, good to know,
Yeah.
right? Or I learned something new. So,
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
it was interesting. I think now in Shenzhen, you can almost all of the fast food delivery is all done by drones. So
Mm.
you don't have
In
like
China,
DoorDash and Uber Eats. Yeah,
yeah.
it's just in one province, in the
I mean,
Shenzhen
like
province. But
China has always been ahead of or ahead of the world, and they are still in the future. So yeah, as much as people like to say, "Oh, they're behind in tech," and America dominates tech and this and that, from listen, I've been to China once, and it was just a brief stopover, and
mhm.
even in that airport, I was like, "Damn, this is crazy."
Well,
Like,
I was talking to, so, because I'm from Houston and they're
mm,
constantly flooding, right? So every time the hurricane season comes around, or not hurricane season comes around, there's always this, like, the streets are flooded and you see all the cars that are flooded and, get washed out and all this kind of stuff. And like people get trapped in like weird areas because there's, too much flooding in the streets, or, whatnot. And it's amazing because BYD, like all their cars can drive on water for up to like a certain number of miles. And they said,
mhm,
we literally only created this because there are so many areas in China that when they get, torrential rain, it
yeah.
is, they flood and people have to be able to get in and out of their homes safely. So
Mhm.
it's like they literally, and the car is only costs like $22,000.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you
yeah.
have
I
people
see.
paying for G wagons that
Right,
can't
right.
float you anywhere. They're just going to get flooded out
Yeah,
the
like I
next
see
time
somebody
they're.
put in the comments, they were like, "No way, China is leading." I'm not saying China's leading, but they ain't as far as behind as people think.
No, no, I think Sasha's saying that no way, China is leading.
Oh,
Because,
oh, oh, okay,
yeah,
okay.
because
No, yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
Sasha's
That's what I'm
always
saying. Yeah,
arguing this
like,
point that
but yeah, but that's
they're
what I
like
mean.
on
Like, there's a
another
lot of,
level.
there's still a perception that they're behind. They not behind.
Did you see
They're
their
not behind.
military activity,
Yeah,
their
she said the
military
innovation
parade?
is next level in China. Absolutely. Yeah, it is crazy the things that they can do over there. So yeah.
Yeah, I think, the thing is that I think that because of the fact that, you know, maybe because of the, I don't want to say like more atheistic background, but their acceptance of a atheistic ideology is that you don't, if you're an atheist, you don't have a problem with the idea of living side by side with robots. But a lot of religious people have like spiritual difficulty with the concepts of, like, for instance, what was it like back in the day? Things like biometrics and stuff. I remember churches like, that's the sign of the Antichrist, that, you're giving people your likeness. You talk
Hmm.
about stem cell research, in
Hmm.
all of these areas. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't have religious conversations. People shouldn't do what they don't believe in, like ethically.
Hmm.
That's not what I'm promoting. But China does in a way have a benefit because for them there's no ceiling to like how far they can take their technology, because
Right.
not at every single step are they having to like morally fight with this idea that a robot is taking over like the spiritual position of a god. And so because of that they like, they get an idea and they run with it really fast. And I think that in a lot of religious communities, they often find that difficult. There's a lot of, you know, America says that they don't like regulation, but okay, if we don't like regulation, then why are things like IVF? Why was that so hard to accept as like a very normal aspect of society? Because people started asking moral questions like, well, is it a soul if it's
You're
in the
right. Yeah.
freezer?
That's a
And
good point. Yeah.
are we destroying a soul? Is it like an abortion?
Yeah.
Is that considered murder? So now we need like 20 years of conversation of, can you be a religious person and support IVF? Like, you don't even need to do the IVF, but could you support someone that's doing IVF, or are you basically an abortion activist? And then it's like,
Hmm.
oh my God, we took this conversation and like made it, like took it so far. But in
Yeah.
China, they don't care. They're
They
like,
don't care.
oh,
Yeah.
we need human beings. Is IVF gonna help us get there? Then let's,
Let's do it. Yeah.
support families to do that. So
Yeah,
there's
that
something about
is.
it.
Yeah, no, that's a good
Hmm.
point. You're right. Definitely, religion. Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, I think you nailed it. You're absolutely right. That whole moral religious thing does sometimes, question science, but I think that's always been that way. Like
Hmm.
science and religion never mix, right? I mean, I'm just being honest, right? Because
Yeah. I mean, my
the
dad got
religious
kicked
folk
out
will
of.
be like, science, are you trying to
Hmm.
play God? And then it's that whole,
Hmm.
like you said, it's that whole conversation where you're battling morals and ethics, and yeah, it gets really sticky.
Yeah.
So
And I'm
yeah,
a really religious person, so I don't want anybody
right.
to like think that I'm like dogging religion. Like
No,
not at all the point that I'm making. But it is just the fact that when you add a moral component to every decision you have to make, you have a decision fatigue. You have a lot of aspects of ethics that you have to consider. And somebody that is like, is this the good for my, like, just my society? And I'm not thinking of anything else above or beyond that. You can go further faster sometimes. So,
yeah,
that's just a reality. So
that is.
I know that everybody's like, what tickers should we invest in? So we did talk about China, that, that those
Those are
bases
some
are
good
only
names.
just now breaking out. So, if you didn't get involved in this first part of the breakout, it's not it's not likely that this is going to fizzle out anytime soon. So China has a positive outlook. What else are you looking at, for people
Yeah.
to consider?
Yeah, top a name that I'm going to continue to pound,
Mhm.
and they just released a new iPhone 17, and all weekend on Facebook, wherever I see everybody with their new iPhones, and I'm sitting here like, oh yeah, baby. Buy them iPhones, please. Buy, buy, buy. So with that being said, Apple is still, listen, Apple is still not positive year to date. Okay, it's still not positive year to date. I don't know how many times I can repeat that and put it in, just like keep pounding it. I'm like, yo, there's no way this market is going to end the year where it is. I mean, the fact that it's where it is now and Apple isn't positive is one of the things that tells me like there's a very good chance that S&P goes to 7,000 by the end of this year. You know what I mean? Because Apple has not gone positive yet. And when Apple
Hmm.
does go positive, shout out to the Nightway in the chat. Me and him, literally, he hit me up and was like, hey, brother, how do you come up with some of your stuff? And then I told him, I was like, it's, some of it's math. Like, I just, do some numbers. So, like, you go look at Apple, its average annual performance is like 20 to 30%.
Hmm.
And if you take where it ended last year, which was 250, and you say, okay, it does 20, 25%, that puts you at like 300.
Hmm.
So simple enough, right? So Apple is a name that I keep pounding on.
Hmm.
Um, Listen, you may hate them, you may love them, but Tesla, right? Like, Elon and this new pay package that
Mm-hmm.
he has, right? In order for this new pay package to kick in, the very first milestone that he needs to get to is Tesla reaching a 2 trillion valuation. Well, again, simple math. What does that mean? Well, if you know the outstanding shares that Tesla has and you know the potential market cap it needs to get to, which is 2
Mm-hmm.
trillion, you do the math and that says, well, Tesla's stock price is going to be 621 when that happens. Tesla's
Mm-hmm.
only trading at 427 right now. Not only that, Tesla just went positive year to date last week.
Yep.
So once again, Tesla needed to get to 400 just to be positive on the year. Now we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about is in positive territory. How much higher can it go? Once again, you look at what Tesla's annual performance is. If you take out the red years, I think the lowest return is like 40 or 50%. So
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about a company that it ended last year at $400. If it does just its average, which is I'd say be conservative and say
Mm-hmm.
35%. What's 400? You take another 35. That's like five and some change or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like Apple and Tesla are really good names. Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
Amazon is literally positive like 4 or 5% on the year. Once
Yep.
again, go look at what Amazon's annual returns are.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon still probably has at least another 15 to 20% of upside.
Yep.
So, I know those are
That's
three
actually a
mag
really good
seven.
point. That
Huh?
year to date, that's a really good point. Just like looking at the actual year to date returns of all of these
Yeah,
mega
like
cap
those are
stocks.
just three of the mag sevens that are barely
Mm-hmm.
positive, right? Then you go
Mm-hmm.
look at like a Meta and a Google, they're up 30, 40% on the year. You
Mm-hmm.
don't think Apple and Tesla and Amazon can't catch up and do the same
Mm-hmm.
thing? I
And
would think
Netflix
so.
is like up in the sky, and all they do is like
Right.
create content. I mean,
Right. You know
they're
what I mean?
not like
So
saving anybody from war or
right.
whatever.
Like they're not
So
doing nothing the world changing. So I would say those are some big names, right? So big
Mhm.
names, Apple, Amazon, Tesla. But if you're looking for like some I guess under the radars or up and coming,
Oh wait, before
uh
you go to the next thing, I do want to like piggyback on that and just say that I think Elon did something really, really clever. And that's that the first thing that he started doing was buying back his own like buying back
buying some
Tesla
shares. Yeah.
stock
Hmm.
and just taking stock off the market because it's basically his way, like, unlike Bezos, who like every time Amazon gets to a certain level, he like
Sales.
offloads
Yeah.
shares. I mean, if literally right now some news came out and it said that Bezos just bought like I don't know $100 million worth of Amazon stock, everyone will be buying Amazon stock because it means he knows something about what's coming in his own company, and because it's
Correct.
his
It's a
company, I
bet on
mean,
yourself.
yeah. So the fact that Elon did that, I think that gave people a lot of confidence in him, which they didn't have with all of the political rhetoric.
Hmm.
Because there's no reason if he knows he's going to go and blow up his own company because he's going to go get back in bed with Trump or something, and they're going to have like public fights about Epstein. He's
Hmm.
not going to be buying back his own stock. He's going to
Right.
bankrupt himself doing that. But
Right.
I think this was a clear signal to people that I know that I was doing this and that's like something that has gone by the wayside, but now I'm back all in. Like I'm
Oh yeah.
focused on this. I think
But he
that.
did. But I'll say this: Elon gave the clues early on.
Mhm.
Like he basically was like, "Yeah, I'm back 7 days. I'm sleeping in the office." Him saying all of that was the early signal.
Mhm.
Then when he bought the billion, that was your confirmation, right? That's one of the things we talk about in the runners is understand what signals was confirmation. A lot of
Mhm.
times you get signals very early, but you miss them, and then the move happens. That's the confirmation.
Mhm.
When Elon was saying, "Oh," as soon as he left the administration, signal.
Mhm.
Then he comes out and says, "Yeah, I'm back 7 days of the week. I'm sleeping
Mhm.
in the office, head down, grinding." Signal.
Mhm.
Now, news comes out, he buys a billion. That's confirmation. He been
Mhm.
all in. He
Mhm.
been all. As soon as he
That's
left the
true.
administration.
Hmm.
And like you said, he got back in, he got back, he started getting in his grind. He did what he needed to do. He said, "Oh, I got this pay package. Yeah, let me go ahead and make this $1 billion bet on myself
Hmm.
because I know I'm about to hit these numbers." And then it comes out, and now everybody's like, "Oh, Tesla's back." You missed the signals. I mean,
Yep.
it's still early, but you missed the signals. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
now it's
That
confirmation mode.
wedge
So
was
now the run
really
is really about to
beautiful.
happen, huh?
It was wedging for a really long time.
Yeah,
I think that
exactly.
that was, the
It was
fact that
trailing
it
for a long
couldn't
time.
break
Yeah,
break that wedge. It wasn't breaking to new lows at any
yep,
point. That was should have been enough for people to get in and get
yep,
aggressive.
yep.
And so you're absolutely right. I do, but and like you said, I think that there are enough companies that just haven't participated well, maybe is the right word. Like they've been a bit bullish, but they haven't gotten like massively bullish, that there's still a lot of room to run.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, people are talking about, so I don't actually, what is COHR? It
That's coherent or
okay.
coherent is I think is the name of the company. I've heard of them before. Let me see. Yeah,
So every
coherent.
so everybody get that. So we have that going in the chat. Somebody's talking about that. It's a good one to check out.
They
So
do. It says they do development, refinement, manufacturing, marketing of engineered materials, optoelectric components, devices, lasers. Yeah, I actually I forgot who the investor was, but somebody had a big bet on them. And I remember when it dropped down to, I want to say it was like $70 or so, like that.
mhm,
That was a good buy-in, but yeah, I've heard of them. I'm familiar with them.
mhm.
But looking at it now, it's pretty much at all-time highs.
Wow. Well, there you go. So TC also and likes COHR,
Yeah,
and
it
then
does have
Pan
a pretty
W.
good setup.
I the Pan W.
Not a
We've
lot
also
though.
been playing Pan W. I mean, so, one of the things that we like to do, and I keep telling people that, we do a lot of calendar and diagonal spreads. So actually, when we had calendars at the 200, which meant that we were short at the 200, but also long at the 200. And it creates this kind of like tent P&L. So the whole time you get your leaps for like almost a third the price because you do this strategy. But then when we got up to the 200, some people were asking me, well, should we close the calendars because we have the short call at 200? And I said, no. I think that we're going to come back down to the 185. And when we get that drop, our short calls are going to go to zero, but our long calls, because they have so much more time on them, are going to hold their value. And then we can wait to get deeper in the money. So we had calendars at the 180, 185, 190, and 200. And so now, like, basically all the long positions are in the money except for the 200. We're just below that. But then all of those shorts expired out the money because of that nice little pullback that we had. And so, and it's the
Hmm.
same thing we did with UNH. It's the same thing we did with ASML. You should be proud. Our ASML call finally panned out. So
I knew it
we're,
was gonna. It was just listen. This is one of the things I tell my people. Often early, rarely wrong. We
hmm.
knew ASML was going to do what it was going to do. We was just a little early. That's all.
Yep. So our group is ecstatic because I think now we're up
Yeah,
like over 1,000%. Same
yeah,
with
that thing was good.
UNH. But like I tell people that the reason that people get stressed out about pullbacks is because they're long only the stock. But when you are short and long the stock, you're making money on both sides of the trade. So you don't have to be too stressed out because
Mm,
that short position allows you to decide, do I want to stay longer in the trade and wait for price to come back up to me? And you made money on the short position.
yeah,
So you're not stressed out. Like your
yeah.
calls are there for dirt cheap. And somebody asked me, like with ASML, the calls that we bought are only now at break even if we hadn't sold against them. But
Hmm.
because we sold against them, we got the calls. So some people in my group, I think when we did the initial call out, they were 46, but we got them for 20. And now
Hmm.
they're at like now they're back at 48.
Hmm.
But some people even got the structure for $8. So
Right.
their $8 structure is now worth 48.90.
Yeah.
Now it's
Me
actually
too.
worth even more on this like last move up.
Yeah.
But I always tell people learn to trade both sides of the trade, because you're just embedding like a 30, 40, 50, 60% discount. If there's literally two Lamborghinis that are exactly the same, and I just tell you this one is X and this one is X minus 60%, why overpay? If you know that there's a 60% sale, why overpay? But
Hmm. Hmm.
people are always nervous about, selling around their positions, but I'm like, makes the position so cheap and you're relaxed,
Hmm.
because you didn't pay $8,000 for the long calls on ASML, you paid
Hmm.
$2,000 and you're not really down at all anyways on the
Right.
move because you
Hmm.
made money on the shorts. You can sit through the trade and now you're happy because they're at 48, right?
Right.
Like you would
Right.
be super pissed off if you paid 8, sold at 2, and now watched it go to
You go
48.
while
That's
you're,
the
yeah.
worst
Yeah.
feeling in the world.
Hmm. Hmm. No,
So,
yeah. I mean, I think that's good risk management, right? And I would say that also highlights the beauty of your trading style, right? Because myself, I don't do the complex trade structure. Like I don't do the butterflies and all that stuff. Mainly because I just rely on my technicals. Like I'm like, look, you just need to be patient or
hmm
have the guts to sit through the pullbacks, right? Or
hmm
like you said, just hedge your long position, right?
hmm
And even if that's the way, that's a lot simpler. But if you're long ASML and it's going against you, okay, get some short term puts to kind of balance
hmm
yourself out or make some money while it's going down, right? That's more of my style. I try to keep things
hmm
pretty simple, but going back to your structure and how you teach people to structure their trades, I think that's just one of those evolutions and the different ways that you can attack the market, right?
hmm
And so you're right. Like people who are scared to do that, I think it's a love. It's a consequence of just lack of experience, right?
hmm
I think number two, it's maybe they haven't traded enough to be comfortable with
hmm
what you're recommending. But if you start, this is why it's important to practice trade and stuff like that. Because if you can paper trade and do the things that Suzanne is teaching you, you may come to find out that doing diagonals and spreads is your kind of thing. Because look at what her example was, is that, ASML took a little bit of a hit. And if you're not in a position to average down or you don't have the
hmm
guts to stay in the trade, you pretty much sold a winning trade at a loss because you got impatient or you
hmm
didn't have good risk management or, yeah, right. But if you
hmm
have a structure in place to where you are short and if it is going against you, you're still making some money, then you now have the patience to sit through and
hmm
let it recover and
Yeah.
get back to where you thought it was, right?
Yeah. I
So,
always
nah,
tell
beautiful.
people, I think that a lot of people approach spreads and stuff as like each spread is a completely different thing. And I always remind people there are only four types of options. There are only long calls, long puts, short calls, and short puts. And the
Yep.
thing is that like once it's like, I tell people trading spreads is easier than doing Legos. Like my mom and my son were building this Lego thing together. And when we were like separating the pieces,
Yeah,
there were literally like 60 different kinds of Legos. Some of
that's
them are
crazy.
flat, some of them are
Yeah.
tall, some of them are
Yep.
taller, some of them have two, three, four, some
Some
of them are
football. Yep.
circular,
Yep.
some of them have hooks. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so many things. I
Yeah.
remember when I was a child, there were like 4 or 5 different kinds of Legos. The most creative
Yeah.
thing was that it had different colors,
Yeah.
right? But I tell people like options, like the basis of options is there are only 4 kinds of options. So it's once you really understand those 4 pieces of the Legos, you're
Yeah.
just like repositioning them. It's like 1 plus 1 is 2,
Yep.
1 minus 1 is 0,
Yep.
0 plus 1 is 1. Like
Yep.
there are not any extra numbers happening, but
Yeah.
people feel like, that if I want to understand credit spread, then and I want to then learn a debit spread. Those are two totally different things. But actually, it's just
It's just the
it's
trade
just
structure.
yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
So
That's really what it comes down to.
don't be scared, friends.
Yeah.
Learn. It'll be
And here's
okay.
what I would tell people: a great learning tool, if you really want to do that stuff, and is if you have E-Trade, they have like this tool that's like a strategy optimizer,
Mm-hmm.
and literally you can go on there and you can practice structuring the trade. First of all, they if you give them an idea, they will spit out different trade structures you can do. Like
Mm-hmm.
they will give you a bull spread, a credit spread. Like I mean, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can go in and actually analyze what the trade is doing. What, you
Mm-hmm.
know, if the price goes here, what would this do? Or what would this part of the spread do? And so if you really want to learn, E-Trade has a really good tool where it's, like I said, it's called like the strategy optimizer
Mm-hmm.
and it's like something else. Yeah, I go in there and play
Yeah.
with that and try it out.
TOS needs to update theirs. They have the trade analyzer tool, but it is so clunky.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
I
I
can
know the
never,
one on E-Trade is fire.
yeah. I've heard great things about the one on
Uh,
E-Trade. And I think that more people are using spread. So,
yeah.
Tasty Trades also has a really great tool, but that's what do you call it? That's, no, Tom Sosnoff. I mean, that's like what is a mastery of all those
Oh yeah,
different
yeah, yeah,
trades.
yeah. I watched a
So,
few interviews with him and stuff. Yeah, you're right.
yeah. And I can't believe I didn't realize. Okay, well, I knew that Tom Sosnoff was one of the developers of the Thinkorswim platform. I did not realize he sold it for $750 million.
Oh wow, I had no
I
idea
was
either.
like, then what
Well,
did
dang.
this guy and yeah. And then imagine that he knows that he's one of the best traders out
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Like imagine what you could do with $750 million. I would be buying like a whole continent
yeah. I would.
if I
Yeah,
could
I
get my
definitely.
returns on
Right.
750
750
million.
million. Y'all would never hear from me ever again. I'm gone. I'm off the grid.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like for the people that are like, we want the call outs. No, so it's like, so what do you think actually about semiconductors right now? Because Nvidia has
So
a
it's a
nice little
rotation.
rounding
It's a
top.
rotation that I'm
Hmm.
seeing.
Hmm.
If you really look at the semis that have been like booming, it's
Hmm.
your um equipment makers like
Hmm.
KLLC, ASML, Micron. Well, Micron's more memory, but
Oh, Micron
KLL,
is like this.
yo, straight up, right? But I'm seeing rotation. Like everybody's so stuck on Nvidia and AMD because they're kind of like chilling. But you go look at KLLC, you go look at ASML, you go look at Micron, you go look at uh, Lamb Research.
Hmm.
Go look at WDC.
Hmm.
Nobody talks about Western Digital. That is a chart that has been up and to the right since the
Hmm.
April bottom.
Hmm.
Right? You go look at who Qualcomm has a beautiful setup. They look like they're
Yep.
ready to break out and run.
Yep.
I mean, even AVGO, it's been
Yep.
cooling off a little bit, but I mean, it's at 344, right?
Yeah, it just
TSM
pulled back to
still
the 21 EMA. I mean,
right,
that's
like TSM still looks, decent. Intel. I mean, they're not a leader, but they just got that $5 million investment.
hmm.
And here's another tell-all. Go look at Soxel, right? That's the
Hmm.
leverage ETF
Hmm.
on it. Even that looks good. So while yes, the leader per se, as far as Nvidia is kind of just consolidating, but I mean, you still got SMH at all-time highs, and you
Hmm.
still, you just have a little bit of a rotation happening in this semi. You know what? Another booming semi. Go look at ALAB. Asteria
Hmm.
Labs. That chart is off the oh my god, going crazy.
That is just doing
Um,
amazing.
then you go look at like I've even found some like smaller semiconductor names.
Hmm.
This is a name, people want name. I'll give you names to just go do some research. But go
Hmm.
check out a semiconductor. Let me find it. It's called Where's it at? The ticker is SITM. So it's
SITM.
Sea Time Corporation. It's a
Okay, guys, write
semiconductor.
it in the chat. SITM.
Go when you go look at that chart, man. This thing is ready. It's not at all time highs yet, but it is. It's. I mean, it's on a big breakout. It is about to go, but that's a semiconductor company. And so look, semis is still popping, right? Another tell all or like another good thing about semis is hopefully the runners don't get too mad at me, but we use SMH divided by SPY, and that's a ratio.
Oh.
And if you go look at that ratio, it's a really good ratio that helps you and tells you. It helps you know if the semis are still in leadership position
Mm-hmm.
and how is that going. That
Mm-hmm.
ratio is not at all time highs yet, and it is still looking like it wants to move up and go higher. So the semis are in a good position.
Mm-hmm.
I think you just have to know that there's a little bit of a rotation happening. And so while Nvidia is just kind of consolidating and AMD is doing it, consolidating, there's
Mm-hmm.
still money going into the semis.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I think
I
I
like.
agree. I think that the smaller ones, yeah, NVTS is also another one that people seem to be really excited about.
Hmm.
Um, in that space. And then there's another one called Tower Semiconductor, and I
Hmm.
can't think of the ticker symbol right now. I'm trying to find it, but I couldn't find it. And that was doing really well for us. We haven't been back into it, um, like for a while,
It's
but we were right.
TSEM.
TSEM. That's
Yeah,
it.
Tower Semiconductor.
Yes,
Yeah, it's like
TSEM.
$67, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we were riding that up the first time up to the 55, and then it kind of hit our 9 EMA. So because we were trading that with shares because the bid ask spread is too wide to
Hmm.
trade stock. But then I totally forgot about it and just totally missed
Yeah,
the
it'd be
signal
like
to get back in.
that.
So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, that's super annoying because now it's like almost at 70.
Right.
Um, an area which Amit talked about last week, which was great that he did, was the whole climate tech, because
Yeah, he's big on that.
CLSK is doing amazing.
Is
Um,
that's Clean Spark, right?
Yep. Clean Spark's doing good. FSLR, is it Fissler, whatever is that,
Yeah.
they're also doing great. I was looking at TAM, but when I looked at it, I didn't like the chart, and I haven't gone back to it. But yeah, it broke out. It's almost breaking out of its downward trend line, depending on how far back you
You
look in
said tan?
time. Yeah, the solar ETF. That's just now starting to make a decent turn. And depending on, how you do your trend lines, it's about to break out. It hasn't broke out yet. Um,
Right.
but but I really like but I think that this area um is has the chance to do well. And oh, what was it that I posted this week? It was like literally right after Amit was talking about it. There was this just this massive um post about China and China in Africa, and some like a
Hmm.
whole bunch about like renewable energy and stuff. And I was like, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's, you know, I,
Yeah.
so I think that's an area that hasn't done well previously, but now has the potential to do well. And I think that also this issue with the OPEC countries starting to turn again. So a lot of what's helped keep energy costs low in the US is that OPEC has continued to keep their production really high.
Hmm.
But Qatar has come out and said, if we are going to be under threat by military, then we're happy to, like, you know, shut down exports to the
Yeah.
US and just
Hmm.
make energy costs crazy.
Yeah.
That could put pressure back on to try, not just for the shale like re-revolution, but it could put pressure on that a lot of renewable sources
that haven't been getting a lot of investment could end up getting some potential, because the US cannot be threatened by the OPEC countries and continue to be in a position of leadership. It just doesn't make
Right.
sense.
Right.
And it makes the US look weak if the OPEC countries and their relationship with Russia and China start to become like, you know, the dynamic between them becomes more negative, because already our relationship with Russia and China is already complicated. Now
Hmm.
we're threatening Afghanistan. Now, and that's probably also something to do with trying to keep the OPEC countries on side. So, I don't know. The political dynamics around energy right now are looking really bizarre. And I
Hmm.
think that renewables could accidentally get some support here from the US government, which verbally they were not getting for a while. So,
Right. Right.
um, somebody asked,
Um.
are these lives saved? Yes, they're always saved. And Zay and I always repost them on
Yes.
our channel. So you can always go back and find any of the Sunday lives. Yeah.
And I guess one or another name that I really wanted to just highlight would be IWM. Listen,
Ah.
that ETF is
Mhm.
about to do some massive work. If you look at
Mhm.
that structure, that is one giant base cup and handle if I've ever seen one. And it
Mhm.
just hit all time highs last week. And if as long now here's the caveat. As long as the Fed stays in its accommodative state,
Mhm.
this ETF is ready to go.
Mhm.
Shout out to I saw my boy in here. I don't know if he's still in here. His thing is called Strat King. Uh,
Mhm.
but we've been talking about the Russell and how I don't trade the Strat or anything like that. I know a few people, but they talk
Mhm.
about like an outside bar. And
Yep.
what an outside bar is, you take out a low and a high of the previous bar.
Mhm.
Well, IWM or the Russell futures market hasn't done it yet, but the
Mhm.
ETF has, where it took
Mhm.
out last year's low. We just took out last year's high last week. And when you have something like that, that's a very powerful signal. And as long as
Mhm.
we stay above last year's high, then you can look for extensions.
Mhm.
And when you look at that and you know what's to come, IWM can easily run to 260, 285 to 300 by next year of March.
Mhm.
And so and again, caveat is the Fed has to stay in this accommodative state, and just know that as long as we stay in that, then IWM is looking ready to extend
Mhm.
and do some work the rest of the year. And everybody knows if
Mhm.
you trade the IWM, the fourth quarter is a magical time for the
Mhm.
IWM.
So those
Like,
small
that's
caps
where a lot
seem
of people
to,
play catch up.
yep, those small caps seem to do like
Yeah,
just
that's going small
super
cap. That fourth
well.
quarter, they love them small caps, but those things be getting ran up.
Is
So yeah,
crazy. And TC also, yeah, the outside bar is also a liquidity sweep. So
yeah.
I don't trade the orb breakout, the open range breakout strategy. I know there are a lot of people that love it.
Hmm.
I don't trade it.
I don't trade that either.
I don't find, like, personally, I don't find an edge in it. Now, one of the things when in my back testing that I found really interesting is that everybody likes to trade orb on the S&P or the Qs, or essentially ES or the Nasdaq. Actually, the underlying that has the best return and consistency on the orb breakout strategy is actually IWM.
It's lovable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
see.
people who like those kinds of like super simple strategies that
Yeah.
are like, have some kind of time-based feel. And if you like Orb, I have never seen any of the YouTube people that trade Orb talk about it on IWM. They always talk about it on SPY and the Qs. But actually, if you look over a long enough time period, it's not profitable over time. So I'm not sure why they preach it.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, for me, I feel like, what is it, clickbait or something? I don't know. It's whatever. But Orb is works really, really well on IWM. That
Mm,
does have a much higher success rate over time. So for those that like that, you know,
try it.
that
Yeah.
like that strategy, consider shifting to IWM. I
Yeah.
promise your win rate will go up.
It'll go up. There you go. But yeah,
See, Sasha likes Orb, but on the 30 minutes, there you
yeah,
go.
there you go.
Maybe I'll go back and retest 30 minutes, but definitely for the 15-minute orb, the IWM best
Got it.
returns. You can get $300 every single day in like five
Nice.
minutes. If that's all
Eh,
you're looking for,
right.
that's a
Depends on
strategy
what
to
the
work.
strategy is. Absolutely. But yeah, no, I really I like that ETF. And that going into the end of the year. So for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's another one.
the last couple of weeks we talked a lot about energy stocks, a lot in the nuclear space, but now a lot of those have run a lot. The quantum computing space, I mean, our trades on QBTS, our shares on QS, they're like IONQ. Those are just like to the moon.
Yeah.
So a lot of things have run. And this is the time where I tell people like, yes, I prefer like I always prefer spreads,
Yeah.
but when things are at all-time highs and they've had these just like massive like bullish and
Parabolic runs.
bullish, bullish, bullish.
Mhm.
It's not even a bullish engulfing because it's not engulfing anything anymore. It's like
Right.
all-time highs and still straight up. I mean, I
Yeah.
looked at IO and Q, those candles are just like this is like a
Yeah.
total price gap between them. But
Mhm.
this is where trading some kind of spread allows you to participate if there is an ongoing up move without kind of putting all of your current returns at risk if you haven't been participating. But we're at the beginning of nuclear, so if you have a
Mhm.
long-term kind of thesis and you're able
Mhm.
to kind of just park your shares away for the next years,
Mhm.
these are still good entry levels. It's you I mean, if you're looking for quick trades, you may have to be a little bit patient here because things have really had strong breakouts. But
Agreed.
yeah, but I think over time, nuclear still has a decent thesis. But for short-term traders, be careful.
Right. Yep. Agreed. Agreed. Always, I always stress that too. It depends on your horizon, right?
Hmm.
And what you're trying to do. And it always seems that way. Most people always just looking for the quick here and now. If that's your thing, then absolutely. I think, be very cautious, right? A lot of things have gone to extreme levels, but if you have more of a long-term outlook, this is some of this stuff is just, early innings, right? Very
Hmm.
early innings. And so, yeah, it's so funny. Let me ask you this question. I got a question
Hmm.
for you. How do you feel when people talk about we in a bubble or the market's in a bubble?
So I think that it's super. I'll be honest. I think that it's really, really difficult to say that we're in a bubble because number one, I don't think we have enough fake AI companies yet. So I think that money is not as easy as it was during the dot-com bubble. You can't just say like, you know, and I think that people learned a lot from the dot-com bubble. So how they're investing in AI is, I think they're being a lot stricter. And you could already hear people say, I'm not going to keep increasing capex unless I can see like valid returns on what we're doing with AI. But I think a lot of people know that their jobs will be at risk if they don't figure out how to use the AI that their company is investing in, even if their company doesn't know what to do with AI.
Right.
Like, maybe nobody above you is telling you because they don't know either. But they do know if we do not increase productivity and efficiency, our companies won't be able to make it over the long haul. And especially for companies that offer like um like stocks and options as part of like their bonus packages and things.
Mm,
You know, the company employees have a personal incentive to make the AI work for their position.
right.
So I think there's a lot of that. I think also robotics has overall stepped into a whole other level of integration. So
Hmm.
I think that, you know, looking back at the kind of robotics that my late husband was working on, I mean, the things he was working on that were like super niche are now like common in factories, common in the auto industry. They're
Mm,
even accessible to like, you know, even the average person in some ways. Things like there's like a maid robot now, like the Rosie from the Jetsons. And
mm,
they
mm,
have it in China and it's like $12,000. I mean,
mm.
honestly, if somebody told me that there was like a real made robot that could do that kind of stuff, I would buy it tomorrow. I'm on the waiting list yesterday.
Right.
So I think that there, you know, there are a lot of aspects of robotics, automation, AI, um, that like every single day, it's aspects of productivity and improvement are just happening so rapidly that I think that it's very difficult because to say that it's a bubble, because I think with bubbles you get to this point that like you're trying to make people believe a story and you're
Mm,
still not sure how to use it. And so
mm,
companies are trying to do internet, but they don't know what it is. They don't know how
mm.
to make it work. And they're trying to get engaged. And you just have like a lot of froth. But
Yep.
I think there's a lot more legs to AI,
Yep.
and we're still at a real discovery level, not
Correct.
like if like we know that we could possibly discover more, but you know there's nothing there. I mean, even just what we're doing with satellite and space and drones and the speed at which we're doing all of that, and all of that is using AI technology.
Hmm.
And a lot of it is sitting in the private capital markets. It's not yet
Hmm.
in the public, you know, in public offerings.
Sure.
So those companies have a really, you know, they have enough time to actually become solid companies
Yep.
before jumping into like the public space. So I find it really difficult to feel like, you know, this is this is like super frothy because I think that we need more fraud, right? Like, what was the guy like, the weird crypto guy with like the strange hair? Was it FTX? Like now I don't even remember. It feels like 3 million
Oh,
years ago.
the one where his platform and stuff went down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we need about like 30 of him, but in AI and
I know you're talking about.
robotics.
Yeah.
And once uh, Friedman,
Yeah, that's it.
Bankman. Oh
Sam
my God.
Sam Bankman Friedman. There you go.
Yeah, that's it. Whatever.
That's it.
Once you have like, we need more of him. We need more
Yeah.
Ponzi schemes in this space to be able to say this is frothy because then you know that fraudsters are also accessing money. But
Correct.
the cost of capital right now is so high
Yeah.
that the only companies that have enough free cash to do fraud are like the mega caps, and those like they're not,
They're
I
not going to
mean,
do it.
no,
Right.
they're not going anywhere. So,
Right.
you know, I mean,
Mhm.
Oracle has just stepped into a whole other level of um what do you call it, when the company is a monopoly, like it has become
Yeah.
like a super monopoly. And so, you know, when you have those kinds of companies that are just growing and everybody's pouring in, I think, and they're doing things, it's not like
Right.
Oracle's not doing stuff, like they're
Right.
legitimately growing. Okay, their
It's a
earnings were a
legitimate
bit
business.
weird, but
Yep.
they explained, you know, where they're going and the multiples looking forward, which is why everybody jumped in. So I find it difficult. I do struggle to say that, you know, looking at things like PE ratios and stuff, you feel like this is frothy, but it's like so many aspects of economy have changed. About taxes has changed, participation in markets has changed, participation by the employee has changed. So I don't know how it's like how people just so easily be like copy paste, oh, that was a bubble then so this is a bubble now. There's just way, I think that it like the entire population is way too married to the success of the US economy
Hmm.
that that I think it's difficult for things to become a bubble, because now it's not just the 1%. Like in the 90s, the participation in markets by like the general population was
Yeah.
like this. But
Right.
actually now the retail investor is so aggressively participating in
Yeah.
markets that it's difficult for me to say um, that this whole thing falls apart, because you would need all of the new retail investors that believe in market participation to suddenly turn around and say the US market is a Ponzi scheme and I'm getting out. You would need all of them to get
Yeah.
out simultaneously for this to pop, because institutions aren't the ones participating in this. This is, you know,
Right.
this is employee participation and retail
Mhm.
participation. So yeah, I think those are, I mean, it's not that I'm like you know, qualified to say, is this a bubble or not? I just think that when I listen to people talk about a bubble, they're economists that are trying to find the, you know, the history. It doesn't always repeat, but it rhymes.
Nice.
But
Yep.
somehow I feel like, okay, but you're talking about Chaucer, and I'm not really sure that like that's the rhyming I want to do right now. It's like doesn't have like you can keep your Victorian poetry for
Right.
another for a different season, but this just it doesn't feel like there it's rhyming. It feels like
Yeah.
people are trying to make comparisons that aren't quite there yet.
Right. Yep. I agree. They're just, they're trying. I think it's sometimes it's really one of those I won't say lack of understanding, but it's exactly what you said. They're really just going on based on what they know, and they aren't really growing or adapting
Hmm.
and understanding the dynamic shifts and changes that have happened. Because when most people are saying it's a bubble, they keep comparing it to the 90s, and it's like, dude, that shit was 30 years ago. You know how much has changed in 30 years? And that's one of the biggest things. And shout out to like my circle of friends that I have, but I have one friend who in particular is very embedded in the technology community, and not only the technology community but the intelligence community. And one of the
Mm.
things he told me, maybe it was about a year ago, was that technology development itself has hit the the exponential curve, right?
Hmm.
It's now at a pace where this is how he explained it. We've now hit the point where technology is developing technology.
Hmm.
That right there in itself is game changing, because
Hmm.
for a long time it was us people developing technology, right?
Hmm.
And the way he explained it was like, just look at how fast, two ways. Look at how fast chips are developed, meaning Nvidia says we're going to make a new chip every year.
Hmm.
Then the other explanation he gave me was, look at how fast like the cell phone technology progressed. I mean,
Hmm.
literally, as a teenager, I remember having a Nokia. Then from the Nokia going to like a Sidekick, from a Sidekick going to a Trio, to now phones have biometrics. Pretty soon, where are cell phones going to be in another 5, 10 years? They're probably going to
Hmm.
be. They're going to be so AI compatible. It's going to be crazy, right? And
Hmm.
at the pace at what these phones are going to develop and change is at an exponential rate.
Yep.
So understanding that, it's like you said, it's very, to your point, history it don't repeat, but it will rhyme. But right now, I'm not catching your rhyme.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's exactly it. It's
Like,
you know, I'm like,
it's like
this
you
is
said,
crazy.
you kind of forcing this rhythm here, brother, and it ain't really jiving.
It's like there's always one person at the wedding that can never clap on beat, and you
Right?
know,
You're
in
not
their
catching the beat
mind
right
they're
now.
dancing to something else. In Arabic, we have a saying that he's at the wedding in Morocco, but this one's dancing to the drums in the Emirates. So you have this
Yeah.
like east-west thing. One person's
Right.
here and one person's doing something
Right.
totally different. But so I mean, I think that, you know, it's and also I think that, you know, there are a lot of from the boomer generation that are, you know, they're retiring,
Hmm.
but they lived through an era where if you didn't adapt to technology, you would lose your job very early, and then you would struggle in retirement because you retired too early with not enough retirement capital
Hmm.
kind of to support you. And they saw that happen, and then I think that a lot of boomers, they accepted the fact that technology is moving fast and I have to be willing to adapt to it. And
Hmm.
I have to say it's phenomenal, like, looking at my parents, how advanced they are with their technology. Like, my dad uses AI for everything. Anytime we have a conversation, every time I write a
Hmm.
newsletter, every
Hmm.
time I'm like do a live, he'll like get the transcript, go back into AI. He will correct me. He'll be like, "You made this statement, and in AI it pointed me to these five different things that said you weren't exactly correct." And sometimes it's funny because it'll be like, okay, an English grammar mistake or something like that. But
Oh,
it's
okay.
interesting that, like, even my dad, who's in his 70s, is
Hmm.
is extremely versatile in using these products. And
Yeah.
I'm like, 2 years ago, nobody would know, like, and he'll be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I don't use Grok for that. You need to use Claude." And, "Oh, I would never put that into Claude. You need to use,
Right.
Chat GPT." And I'm like, the fact that you even know the differences between each of these AI
Yeah.
situations, and you're in your 70s, I think that it demonstrates that people at that age, it's not like when the internet came out and you were trying to help people understand what the World Wide Web was. I think
Right.
that we've all grown up in this kind of world in which your survival is based on adaptation
Yep.
to the changes in technology. And if you
Yep.
don't keep up, you will be left behind. And even
Absolutely.
people who are aging, are moving on. And it's not necessarily that they're still working, they're retired people, but even that they want to stay relevant in their world.
Yep.
I think is unique to generations before them, and
Yep.
I think that keeps the technology, gives it a wider base of participation, because it's not just companies that are using all of these products and technology. It's it's like the normal person.
Right.
So
Right.
somebody even put Duolingo in in the chat. And yeah, I mean, like, how do I even know about Duolingo? Is not because I use it. My mom uses it. My mom is like in her 60s learning French, and she's every single day. She has like a 2,000 day streak on Duolingo for French. And,
Wow.
it's like people are using these technologies. So they're not going anywhere. So how are you guys approaching trading with the market at an all-time high? So I already answered that, but Zay, I don't know if you have anything from your side to add.
I
And
mean,
the
I think we
trend is
both
your
answered.
friend.
Yeah, I mean, we both answered it. Just continue to be selective. I mean, yes, the indexes are at all-time highs, but like we mentioned
Hmm.
earlier, indexes are at all-time highs, but yet only half of the stocks are above certain moving
Hmm.
averages. So there's still opportunities out there. I think so. I'll give just to give you to answer your question. Like number one, look for stocks that still offer value. Right.
Hmm.
We definitely talked about a few of them today
Hmm.
on the live. So if you just kind of tuning in, I'd say rewatch it, but being selective, right? You have to be selective, continuing to just use your normal risk management practices, right? So if you are, here, I really don't think you should change much just because the market is at all-time highs. Like if
Hmm.
you have a trading strategy, just continue to use it.
Hmm.
Like, and if if you need to make if you need to make adjustments, fine. But I think you can continue to trade your way. You just have to know where are the opportunities. And when
Hmm.
it comes to that, it's finding stocks that are still fairly valued, understanding where the money is moving,
Hmm.
right? And we all know that, you know, the whole AI data center ecosystem is just a big money grab right now, right?
Hmm.
So from the technology stacks to the energy suppliers to the hardware supply is, like, just that whole ecosystem is just money generating right now, right?
Hmm.
Understanding macro trends, right? That will help you understand, where you can find value and stuff like that. So, I know the market is at all time highs, but to say, how am I approaching trading? I would say the same way I approach it when it's at lows. I'll try to find good value, position
Hmm.
myself correctly, use risk management, and that's it, right? Stick to my strategy and what I'm doing.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. Somebody asked, any surprise that Claude Witching didn't impact the market last week on
No,
Friday?
no, 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 and no. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because it is now a hype event.
Hmm.
To Suzanne's point, retail, we have gotten a lot smarter. 3, 4 years ago, you asked people what triple witching was, nobody had a fucking clue.
Hmm.
Everybody knows now. It is a non it, to me, it has been a non-event for the past 2 years, where everybody hypes up triple witching like, oh,
Hmm.
it's gonna be so much money in options expiring, but the days are so dull. Like, you
Hmm.
have to understand that institutions know that, so they're starting their triple witching ahead of time. They've
Hmm.
been rolling contracts. If you understand futures, contract rollover started last week. So
Hmm.
they've been getting out of positions and rolling over, as well as, it's now called triple witching, meaning they let go of single stock expirations. It's only futures and like two other types, but
Hmm.
single stock expiration, they don't do that no more.
Hmm.
So am I surprised that it didn't? No, because name me the last expiration where we actually really had any big volatile movement.
Hmm. Yeah, we would need
So,
to have yeah, the VIX would need to squeeze and it would need to get out of this like 18 range. One of the things I told my group about, I think it was not this last week, but the week before that. I think it was on the Thursday or Friday. And I told them, I said, do not underestimate, and I think I said this on the live as well, do not underestimate Trump's capacity to understand the psychology of the masses. Anything that is in the pipeline that is going to make people nervous and impact the markets, he will know how to drive the narrative to dampen volatility before the volatility shows up. He knows
facts.
how to distract, he knows how to bait and switch. He knows how to do all of that. He's been doing that.
Been
Um,
doing it.
so, this is his profession, right? Like he knows how to do that. All the people who say he's a businessman and a real estate this, he's not. But what he is extremely good at public relations. And so the fact that they have elections coming up, they know that because of everything going on globally, all of the ups and downs about tariffs, the fact that everybody was afraid of inflation, the fact that everyone was afraid of rates not coming down. Um, he knew how to drive all the conversation. So even though inflation isn't lower, people don't care about it anymore. The fact that interest rates aren't substantially lower, people aren't worried about it. Why? Because he has given people a sense of those things don't really matter. And who cares if inflation comes back a little bit? Because inflation is great for your housing prices. And don't worry, mortgage rates are going to come down. And so even if your house is at all time valuations, people will finally be able to afford it. So don't worry about your asset valuation. He knows how to drive these kinds of conversations, whether we like it or not. So I said, it's very difficult to front run the reversal until you
Hmm.
actually start to see signs. When a reversal comes and it's a 10%, pullback, it's
Yep.
okay if you miss the first 1%. You can still catch the other 9% down. The worst thing is trying to get the entire 10% pullback but actually missing the next 10, 15% on the upside before the 10% comes, because you actually then don't participate in the drop and you didn't
Right.
participate on the move up. So I just told people there's so much bear porn out there. Just be careful. Like, don't wreck your accounts and doing all kinds of nonsense. Like,
You said
as they
bear
said
porn.
in Well, what you said in the beginning, the trend is your friend until it's not. And right now,
Correct.
there are no trends broken. I like most stocks, even though they're like this, they're still above their 20 moving average, and even when they're giving pullbacks, they're only pulling back to the 20.
Yep.
Some are pulling back to their 50, but most are, very constructive uptrends. They get a bit overextended, they come back, and then they
Mhm.
carry back on. So, I think that I would be cautious. Like, I think that, quad
I'm gonna go
witching,
close my door real quick, and
yeah,
I'll be
yeah,
right
no
back.
problem. Are you playing SoFi? So actually, we closed all of our SoFi positions this last week because our end of year target really was the 30, and we had calls that were at the 16, 18, and 20. And SoFi hit 30, and I just couldn't justify being that deep in the money. I told people, if you want, you can take those calls and turn them into shares. Since your calls are down at like the 16, you can take shares at 16 if you believe that in 5, 6 years from now, SoFi will be at 100. That would not be a bad play. But until I see um, new contracts coming in above, it's difficult for me to keep playing above the 30 because it did have a really nice kind of roundabout before kind of blasting through the highs. But we have a saying in our group, the the zone at the top of or the top or the bottom of the range is made to be liquidated. So we've created this like singular top range. My thesis would be that we could aim to liquidate that area. So we might create some kind of double top or some kind of topping fashion before we pull back into like a lower demand zone and then kind of go back up. But right now, I feel strange. I don't know that I could just buy calls at 30 on SoFi. I could maybe do it in a structure, but not just to buy naked calls, no.
I will say, I just looked at SoFi's chart. It reminds me a lot of Robinhood, though.
That's also true. But isn't SoFi already in the S&P?
Mm. SoFi's not in the S&P yet.
Um, well, I might be on here next Friday with a new thesis.
No, it's not. It's not in the S&P yet.
Well, and I'll guess that SoFi gets in the S&P before MSTR. I don't think MSTR is ever getting in the S&P. Just throwing that out there.
Oh
Not
man,
financial advice. Not financial
that's going
advice.
to be interesting. Yeah, yeah, but no, I don't think SoFi's not in the S&P yet. But damn,
Oh.
that is. Whew, I just looked at that chart. I didn't. You was like it hit 30. I'm like, hold up, let me go look.
Yeah, because
uh,
we were playing it for forever. And it's funny because we got assigned shares at $11. And I was
yeah.
like, this thing is going to be like take forever because that's when it like kept trying to come up and just couldn't really break through. And I was like,
Hmm.
don't worry, guys, it'll finally
It's
get
going to
there.
find its
So
way.
now that
Yeah,
it's at 30, I'm like, vindicated.
yeah,
From
yeah. No,
March
that's a.
until August, until September was a long ride, but we got there. So
I
I
did
think
not know that.
SoFi will benefit from rate cuts. Yeah, I do think that it is possible for SoFi, but I do think that some of that was already priced in. I think that's why it has done really well. Um, Now, there is a banking regulation that is on, I don't remember exactly what the details were, but I remember listening to something about like banking regulations, and they happened to say, and I then didn't ever write it down, but there's something in the banking regulations that will change, and it will actually allow
Mm,
SoFi to enter like a new aspect of business. And so the person believed that SoFi still had like more upside action. Now, my thing is that because I always trade, it has to be a chart setup plus gamma. I can't, like, I have to, stick to my rules. So I know a lot of people will stay in SoFi, but for me, I felt like, okay, we've
Yeah.
already seen. I mean, one of our trades was up 1200%. I
Yeah, at
feel
that point,
like
it's like,
that's,
don't be so greedy, man. Jeez Louise, like 1,200%. Like, I feel you. I definitely feel you. But,
I
some people
mean,
are going to the moon.
I know it's like you pay $50 for a stock and it's now it's like for a position and now it's up $980. You will feel like a total asshole if that thing goes to zero. Not that
Right.
it could. I mean, we have like calls that are deep in the money. That's why
Yeah.
we decided just to exit because something that people forget is that once an option gets really close to the one delta, it's not going
It's
anymore.
not
The
going,
one
yeah.
delta is the ceiling.
Now
So
you just, as it goes up a dollar, you just like,
you're not making
yeah.
any
So,
money.
right,
So
right,
at
yeah.
that point, you should just own the stock
But
if
I
you have
mean,
such a high conviction in the company.
and then I also say, like, at the same time, at what point does, like, if you up 1,000%, can it go to 2,000%? Sure, but like, you're not content with making 1,000%.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, I'm like, let me choose my French, but like, bro, what?
Yeah.
And
So,
I also think this is something I also tell people too. Getting a 10x trade is hard, right? And getting a 20x trade is even harder. But if I do get a 10x, why not take that money and then go look for a different trade? Because the time it will take for me to take that money I made in 10x and then if I just double it, meaning get
mhm,
100%, me doing that is a lot better than me waiting for that 1,000 to go to 2,000.
mhm,
Because if that doesn't happen, then the 1,000 comes back down. You're gonna be mad.
mhm.
You know what I mean? So it's
Yep.
also some people. I think a lot of people also forget about the effects of compound interest. If you take a 10x play and then you take that money and just go find a play that makes 100%, on that original investment, you're up like 1,500%. That would be the same thing as if you let that 1,000% play try to get to
Mhm.
1,500. That's a lot harder versus taking that 1,000 and then go and find some another opportunity and just doubling it.
Yep. Yeah, I
So
completely agree. And I love compounding. I think that
yeah,
um people often forget that, it's how quickly you can scale an account. Like I have one lady in the group. We have we have two different sets of trades that we take. So we have what we call our systematic trades,
yeah,
and those are like literally the same exact setup over and over and over again. You just rinse and repeat. Some of them are
yeah,
0 DT, some are 1 DT, some are weekly, some are monthly. Okay.
yeah.
And then we have our discretionary trades. And I have one lady in the group that like she's hardcore about like I need to learn discipline. So she resets her account every month at like, I don't know, something like two, $3,000. And then she does one systematic trade. And now
Mm,
she's like every single month she's flipping her account to like 20, 25,000. And
mm-hmm,
she's under PDT, so she can't do like 0 DT trades every
mm-hmm,
single day.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And she's done this now like 6 months in a row. And I'm like, seriously? She's like, yeah. She said, even me, I can't believe it. But every time I'm like, no, I'm going to go back and because she said, I really need to embed discipline because
Yeah.
I look at other people who are like, oh, my account looks like this exponential thing. Then I get out there and I start doing all kinds of wild garbage. And I just, my account will, she said, I've like grown my account to like 60, 70,000, and then in 1 week lost it all just because
Mm.
I do not
That's yeah,
exercise
lack of
discipline.
discipline. Mm-hmm.
And and so she's like, I know that that's something that I need to learn. The good thing is that because I've seen myself flip my account month over month, I have more patience than I did before. But she
Yeah.
said, I still haven't learned the power of compounding because the minute I see somebody doing some like weird, I got
But
20,000,000,000%, suddenly I'm like, wait, what are they
I need
doing?
her
And then
now.
she's
Yeah.
like,
Just stick to your thing. If what she's doing is
mm-hmm.
working for her, just keep doing that. Run your own race, people. Run your own race.
Yes, exactly.
Comparison is the thief of joy, they say.
Yep. Somebody
Yeah.
said always good to win in options, but invest as well along the way. Absolutely. 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 Especially like with my kids' accounts. The thing I tell people is like at the end of every week, I look at how much money I've made and I immediately flip that into shares, into like dividend paying stocks. Because I
Hmm.
don't know if my kids are going to be interested in investing when they're 18,
Oh,
19,
they're right.
20. They might, they might not care at all about it, or they may not have the acumen for it. Like, I just have to accept that, and that
Yeah.
they might not want to do this at all. My kids now, they think it's amazing to talk about iron butterflies and iron condors and all this kind of stuff, but they may be sick of it 15
I
years
get
from
all
now, if I'm
that.
honest. So,
Yeah.
but then it means that I can't like play with the entire account, because everything that's sitting in shares, that's, I can't do much with that. I can only do
Right.
the options on the rest of the cash that's sitting there. So it helps keep me honest, because I can also start to be like, they have time, they're young, I can start doing all kinds of
Crazy
crazy
stuff. No,
business.
you don't
But
want to do that.
no, exactly. So um all right. Well, it is almost top of the hour again. We've
Yep.
been on almost for 2 hours, but I think
Yep.
that we have passed out a billion gems here. I hope that you guys feel like when you come on that you're learning, that this is helping you in your trading week ahead, that it's keeping you like grounded in your trading. If you are not following either of us, then you need to, because both of us also share a lot of updates in our stories. And of course,
Yep.
when we're doing lives together or other events, then you
Yep.
will get the updates. But yeah, just thank you guys for being here. I love the fact that it seems that we have more people tuning in, more
Yeah.
people getting into the comments. Have 4 p.m. EST, on your alerts. And also next week, we will have Moody Bugs on with us. For those that did attend the Come Up series, their Tech Wealth Summit this last weekend, he was one of the presenters. He'll be here next week to share with us. And we have
Dope.
other people coming on in the near future. Some of them were in the chat. So I hope you guys get to see TC and Dre again soon. Of course, Zay is my bi-weekly co-host, so you
Yes.
will definitely be seeing him anytime. I like that 4 p.m. is my
No religion.
religion, not
Yeah.
to
I saw
miss.
that one too.
Then get other people to convert
Yes.
to the Church of Options. All right,
Facts.
friends. I hope you have an amazing week, and that you make a lot of money in these markets, because there are still many opportunities ahead of us.
Yep.
All right. I'll say good night for now, friends.
All right, everybody.
Thanks, A, for joining.
Thank you. Have a
Bye
good
for
one.
now. You too.